Welcome to the Beyond Physio Podcast, where we help you move, excel, and inspire others on your journey to your next level with knowledge and advice from experts and testimonials from our like-minded community.
Welcome to Beyond Physio Podcast. Today we have with us, we're very honored to have author and journalist Henry Abbott. He is the author of Ballistic, the new science of injury-free athletic performance. So welcome.
Thank you very much for having me. This is great to be here.
Tell us a little bit about how you came to write this book and why you wrote it.
Yeah, there are kind of two big things. One was I've been an NBA journalist since I'm 50, all my entire adult life, basically. And it just became clear that injuries were the story. Every year, if your star's injured, then you're not going to win. But then there are multiple examples in every year's playoffs. We literally picked May for the book to come out because we knew there would be headlines about NBA players being out in May, and just set your watch to it. There you are. That's a bummer. Is it the bummer? Hey, I got close enough to enough players to see just the unbelievable amount of work that goes into it. I'm a marathoner, or I was, and you put all this work into this one moment. You get the moment taken away. It's it's more than just, you can't go to work that day. It's oh man, it's the pinnacle of, these are the finest athletes on the globe, and they've put all this work into just this big opportunity, and the opportunity is just gone. And it's a loss for us. People appreciate the sport. I remember when Kevin Durant tore his Achilles, Marcus Elliott, who the book is largely about, was it's a cultural loss, right? Kevin Durant doing that was a sort of like Yo-Yo Ma playing the cello, Yo-Yo Ma now, for. So that was just this kind of grinding sadness, right? Of just, we're not doing this well. And the rate of injury depends how you measure, but it's roughly 100% in the NBA. There's no Cal Ripken in this sport. So that was a bummer. At the same time, I have this weird body. I have hip dysplasia and love to be athletic and do stuff. And it worked. My system worked pretty well for decades, but at the same time, I was getting more serious jobs in covering the NBA and thinking more about their bodies. My own body was encountering a lot of the same stuff that players were finding. And I was shocked when they're on the same back alley search for practitioners who know what they're doing that I was on. The team doctor doesn't know. And then you maybe go to your friend who plays for another team, maybe their doctor can know, and that guy knows someone who does backs, but he's only in this one city, and on and on. I was they don't help. There's not some magic system out there that pro athletes get great care from, as evidenced by the fact that so many of them are out, and B, so many have recurring injuries, right? Best predictive injury is prior injury, which means we're not returning to play properly, right? It's 100% perfect proof. So it just seemed like we had this giant society-wide need for we are not seeing the signal and noise here. We need to do better. And then in the pandemic, I was I just wanted to write something that was positive and uplifting and inspiring and more fun to think about than I was writing about money laundering, basically. Not fun at all. And it struck me that these are the people in sports who are doing the most positive, constructive, uplifting thing, addressing this kind of giant problem of no one knows how to use their hips and no one knows how to use their feet. And so I called Marcus. I was if I propose this book about you, would you participate? It's going to be kind of a burden. And he's you know what, Henry, you're the only person in the world I would say yes to. He's you or Charles Bethea of the New Yorker, who's a great cock. It's a great choice. But Charles Bethea wasn't pitching a look, so that was good. So then we went off on this journey, and I know a bunch of authors, and everybody said they get super bored of the project by the end. I did not get bored. I was inspired every single day, learning just cool stuff about the body and all these stories. And I'm still I was texting with them before I walked in here today because there's some guy in Austin whose son has a problem and maybe they're going to work on his hip and help him out. I just feel they seem to know everybody wants to know circa 2025.
Yeah, absolutely. You're not a physical therapist or a doctor by trade. You're a journalist. But what I found really interesting is that you were able to describe, I guess that's the writer in you, right? You're able to describe and explain high-level biomechanical principles so well. Did you feel like you had to get a crash course in biochemistry, biomechanics, and physical therapy?
Yeah, I'm an idiot. I literally wanted to know. I was a really good student in high school and college. I got good grades, but there was one class that I was I can't do this, and it was physics. And I was I think I didn't have the best teacher of it. I just was shoot me now. Everything he was saying about vectors, I was I just don't know where to go. Just, and not Paul, And I had to kind of limp through. I just never grasped it. And so that's how I started. And I went into P3, and I think my only skill is a willingness just to look like a complete idiot. And I just asked every dumb question. And they're so nice there. That guy, Eric Liedersdorf, who's in the book a lot, is the smartest person I've probably ever met. And he would just take my calls, and he'd be so nice. And I would ask these questions, I'm sure, at least in the beginning. I think my questions like got better, right? Where in the beginning, I think it was literally like, are we sure this guy should write? But it was years of just asking, and being willing to look like an idiot. And there is actually, and I'm aware of a biological mistake in the book, which drives Marcus bananas. Okay. Which is, there's a little thing about how he would breathe, how Marcus would breathe, and he would concentrate on exhaling. Because when you inhale, I said the air would go into your esophagus, but it doesn't go in your esophagus. And he's like, hey, Marcus, Harvard Medical School, I'm sorry, esophagus thing, publish a correction. I published it. But yeah, but mostly I feel like I just had to be very careful. I had to write a first draft and then run it by Eric, and then, or not just Eric, the whole staff. Yeah. Is this sound right? Is saying this right? And I just took a long time. Yeah. And hopefully, it wouldn't surprise me if someone called me and said, oh, there's another esophagus type error in there, because they did not bring a big body of knowledge to this.
No, I mean, I think that the way that you described a lot of the mechanics makes so much sense. And I think it's probably a benefit that you are a layperson, because you're able to describe it in a way that a layperson could understand. Especially like the towel rain concepts, I really enjoyed. And I'm like, that makes a lot of sense. How did you end up meeting Marcus and getting connected with him?
And I got this job at A-Scanner. I was supervising a whole bunch of people. And I was, even back from that, I had basically paused. I was writing a blog on ESPN.com called Trudeau, and I would publish more than anyone in the ESPN. I published more works every year than anybody else, just fire hose of work. But I stopped publishing for months because I really wanted to explore this injury peg. And so I was like reading and calling people or going to conferences. And I had this big Google Doc with just everything I could learn about preventing injuries. And I was in that, like in the crucible of that, I had, hundreds of pages of research. And then I got offered this promotion to run this 60-person group. And so I just was like, oh, crap. Like, what do I do with this? And so I handed it off to some other writers who were super capable. And not all of them got as excited about it as I did. Tom Haberstroh and Baxter Holmes really did dive in. And they both, and in that dossier was some stuff about Marcus and P3, but it was in a sea of other people. And eventually, over time, it emerged that all of the most interesting findings in this space, Baxter and Tom are going to Santa Barbara, and they'll call me in with these reports of layers ahead kind of stuff, right? And so I was aware of it. And then the funny part is that at one point, one of the writers who worked for me got in a little tiff with Marcus over something on the record, off the record. And I didn't really know what had happened, but basically the writer was basically, you want to talk to my boss? And Marcus said, yes. And that's literally the person that Marcus was, he was mad. And I was just the manager. And we had a 20-minute conversation that was not friendly. But what I didn't know is how I was winning him over by really having my guys back. And I was like, I don't know what happened, but I know this guy's meticulous, which is true. And I just didn't stop. And then I was part of a flat CSDN, and that's where a whole bunch of people. And I got all the regular phone calls and texts from people like, oh, this is awful. But then Marcus called me about a week later. Again, this guy only ever had this argument with. And he talked, I remember clearly, I was laid down on the couch. And it was weird he was calling me anyway. And he talked for 90 minutes about how he could tell how meaningful I was to the writers that he met. He's they were free. They were wild animals. They were ready to jump on any interesting thing. And then once you and I had our discussion, I knew why. It's because they knew you had their backs. I'm really sad that they've lost this. And that was something that I felt deeply, but not even my wife knew this, right? It was somehow he perceived this from this one thing. And he just got on my radar as weirdly smart guy. 50 about special. Yeah, it was a weird, I was like, huh. And then I flew out there not too long after that just to kind of see what they were doing. And then that was the first time, that was 2019. And the first time I got a sense of oh, this is so much more sense than everything else I'd seen.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think what P3 is doing so interesting in that we were talking about this a little before the podcast started, but what I find is so interesting is that a lot of their conclusions are a lot of things that the physical therapy world has been debating. Like I have debated over the years, right? But does dogness matter? Does core strength and ankle range of motion, all these things that physical therapists have debated about and really had passionate conversations about. But P3 was actually able to put data behind it to support the things that we have been doing or we've been trying to do, or as the profession has evolved, because there's a split happening in terms of the world of physical therapy. Okay. There's people that are really interested in understanding the root cause and honing down and looking at the body as a whole, rather than you have an ankle injury, let's just treat the ankle. Because your hand out. Use your hand. Yep. Yeah. Like let's do some pink clamshells. Yeah. Clamshell valve, but yeah, the context matter. What I think was so interesting is that P3 is honing down on these concepts and have an understanding that the body is a whole and we have to treat it as a whole. And we have to look at these variables through that lens, and having the data back it up is so encouraging because it invalidates like what a lot of the assertions that we've made by intuition or background studies and other biomechanical concepts, that now we have this data set on a person of the data set, but now we go up south. Yeah, it exists. Yeah, to be able to do it, because you talk about this in the book as well, is that research in this area doesn't exist. Yeah, because it makes them money. Yeah, the system is set up to push things that make money, like pills and surgery and all these other things, that to come up with this data set and have an understanding that certain markers lead to injury, physical therapy really hasn't been able to get that data set because the system's not set up for us to be able to get. So I think that's something super, super important, super, super interesting and encouraging when you go into the book.
So I'm super interested to know, okay, I'm not a physical therapist. Yeah. As we mentioned earlier, like what are the P3 findings that resonate in the PT community review?
There's debate about whether or not you can manage or prevent injury in general. Yeah. And they say, basically, like a lot of these interventions, like no one's studying how a comprehensive individualized hip program can prevent a knee injury, because there's no way to actually do that research. You still get big numbers on it. Exactly. Yeah. Like in terms of any number of athletes, right? There really isn't any way to quantify that outside what P3 was doing.
And everybody's program, like you might assign towards their program, but they're going to do a bunch of different stuff, right?
So how you program? You can't randomize control that study. In terms of physical therapy, there's a lot of debate. Is it pathoanatomical? Were we talking about rib position, pelvic position? Are we talking about just soft tissue? Physical therapists for a long time have debated whether or not certain interventions will lead to actual improvement in outcomes, right? And a lot of the research in terms of like soft tissue mobilization or therapeutic exercise shows that it's not very effective. So a lot of PTs have been like, let's not do it then. But when you come with a comprehensive program like we're doing in P3, and like we do here, where we assess the entire body, have an understanding of where maybe some of your range of motion or strength deficits are coming from, and how they have reverberations through the knee and the ankle and the low back. That understanding is where I think things are changing in terms of PT, right? It's called where the joint by joint approach, or like what they call relational interdependence.
Oh, I didn't know that, Joe. That's cool. That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
But yeah, I think in terms of what you're outlining in the book is also how you yourself were dealing with injuries and how you came out of it with an understanding of what the healthcare system is set up like. Yeah. So would you be able to talk a little bit about your own injury journey and your lazy urine?
Yeah. So I was born with hip dysplasia. I was supposed to wear this metal brace when I was a baby, and my mom didn't make me wear it very much when I cried. But and I think it was just kind of fine. Like I did everything. I played 3 sports in high school and was pain-free by and large. But then if you look back now, I would have some kind of hip back pain roughly every decade. I went to some back clinic at the end of high school. I remember, I don't think it lasted long. I did my honeymoon. I was spent with my hips rotated like 30 degrees to the right and like tons of pain. But the first half of my life anyway, that was so bad. We went to Athens. So we were going to the Greek Isles, but then transferred to Athens. I couldn't carry a bag. Yeah.
Your bride was dragging your die for you. Nancy, guy.
Well, you got a winner. And then I had this, about the time I got that big job promotion, I had been running a bunch of marathons. I was training pretty hard. And it just got like the kind of pain where like, literally the living nightmare was that I would have to like kick a soccer ball, or that I'd like kick a curb or slip on an ice. And I went to a bunch of PT, like no one, like a lot of everyone's like, what's tricky? And I'm like, I don't want to be tricky. I want to be getting better. Like it was like, I'm sure it was my back now, but that time I didn't get an MRI, and like we were just guessing about, is it this quad? Is it this? Or I was running like the Alder-G treadmill and trying all this stuff. And I went to like the Rothman Institute. I went to like kind of the fancy places, and it seemed like everyone had the same kind of basic set of guesses and felt like we were kind of shooting in the dark. And most days hurt, I just wasn't getting better. And yeah, it was just, I haven't a sneeze today with the kind of, not less.
Yeah. How long did that go on for?
I think it was like 6 months. And then I finally was at a dinner with a bunch of friends, and like my good friend's little sister had been apprenticing with some guy. He was like some kind of soft tissue wizard, and she was getting a certified as a kinesiologist, but was certified as a CrossFit trainer. And basically she was like, oh, how about if you just came in, let me give it a shot. And she had like group fitness classes, and I had not much to lose. And she paid very careful attention. And she was saying stuff no one else had said. She was like noticing like my right foot turned out more on my left, and the way I squatted was all jacked up. And she was like watching me move, which felt useful and different from the doctors who had me lie still while they would do a little assessment.
Yeah.
And I had a moment, I was washing the dishes about 6 weeks into training with her. And forget, I don't know, like maybe twice a week with her. They were hard workouts. And I was standing there like, oh, I'm hit free. Like it was just like like we should have a party for that. We party for like anniversary or something. We should party for pain free. That's the party day to me. Greatest day. And so I just basically was like, I'm going to stick with her. Unfortunately, she eventually went back to school, and she's a nurse now. But yeah, and then that was good for a decade after that until this episode that's in the book. Yeah. Where they cut her, and it was miserable. It was a bad deal. So then, and then I finally did get an MRI when like I have the diagnoses are like a page. Yeah. And it looks like what's happening was all the time I was growing up, moving in those aggressive ways, I was not absorbing force into my hips. And so they passed up into my lower back edge. You can see like a car crash, my lower back. And so now I'm a little bit like a more careful athlete. And I did my P3 workout this morning. Yeah. So I think for the insurance and stuff, like I've never met a single person who takes insurance who helped me with any of this. Yeah. Which is just a bummer. Well, with the possible exception, like I did have a covered physical therapist who really did help me a lot in just getting from like immobilized and useless to like walking and driving and able to. So that was great. But once I wanted to like get active again, like I wasn't even on the to-do list at the PTO, which was a bummer to me.
Yeah, and that's something that sets us apart. We say when you are out of pain, that's when PT starts.
Yeah.
So the reason why we're called next level is that we have like different levels. So the first level is move, and move is let's get you out of pain. Let's get you moving again. Pick up the groceries and drive a car. I'll walk around. That's where PT, that's usually where it ends. Yeah. Unless Chris said, oh, you're out of pain, you're good. The next level is called Excel. And Excel is essentially where we have already assessed and determined what the limiting factors are, right? Say it's your hip internal rotation range of motion. Say it's the fact that you don't fire your glutes. Say it's the fact that you have very poor ability to expand through your work. Right? Yeah. During the Excel phase, we're practicing those principles and really building your program for longevity. And so like you have your P2 program, that's where we're starting to build this program. And I don't understand like what's working, what's not working, and really tweaking it to get you to be able to stabilize in the better position. And then Inspire is the last space where essentially we're trying to push your capacity and your ability to do more than you ever were before.
Cool. Yeah.
So you talk about that in the book, right? Too. Insurance doesn't give a, pardon my French, give a shit about whether or not you could jump or do a marathon or whatever. But they should, right? Yeah. But it's the Inspire phase where we're able to push your capacity. Yeah. And I use that word capacity for a reason, because part of what our principles here is that everyone has a capacity towards injury. You have like, I use the illustration as a gas tank, right? And there's different things that make your gas tank either bigger or smaller, right? For example, somebody that is in the NBA, they have a very high gas tank. They're able to withstand a lot of physiological stress before they get injured, right? It's just the fact that the NBA puts them through a meat grinder that most 100% of them get injured. And there's all these different factors that play into your capacity. It's your nutrition, your hydration, your sleep, your stress levels. Those are things that, are outside of our control, but inside the patient's control. And then there's some genetic factors, right? And then there's physiological factors like you don't fire your glutes, or you have really poor core control, or you have no ankle range of motion. All those things are sapping your capacity. So somebody that has a potential having capacity like this, now because of all those factors, their capacity is here, and it takes very little for them to spill over into injury. So as far as like our patients, that Inspire phase is to get them back to be able to have that high capacity, because we're working on these other factors, building those Legos to be able to make their tower bigger.
Yeah. But it feels to me like what's so important about this is like, until you make a pattern of moving in a better way, you're not out of it. Right. Yeah. Like you might feel better in that first phase, but if you're going to go move the same way you moved before, like you're going to be back. We held it. And so to me, like this, I'm a quick learner with some problems, but these like biomechanical problems, I'm the slowest. Like I really just don't, I put myself just bad. Like I'm a runner. It's like, no, just go that way. But no, I just pulling you. That's okay. But this guy Outsash at the lab did this thing where I was standing in the airplane position, and he just pulled my heel back a little bit. He's like, there, like now you're in your glute. And like, I had to feel that. So I have my own internal cue. I have to know what my body feels like when it's doing the right thing. All the work I did thinking I was getting into my glute, like before that was for naught until that moment. I'm like, no, I know. Yeah. And so I felt it. Now that has to be how I bend down to put the saucepan away. It has to be like, this glute needs to be part of my life. And I don't think 12 sessions of getting an opinion does anything to really changing that. It's all neurological and it's all this programming. For me, it takes tons of reps, but also takes like fun and exciting things. Yeah. I have to care about it in terms of completing a high box or whatever, about doing things that matter to me instead of just, oh no, I need to do my homework because I was moving badly. That's not a good motivator for me. I don't want to be like, if I can get these glutes together, like we are going to kick so much ass.
You can finally beat John and IROPS.
Like, let's do that.
Yeah, I think that in terms of having a goal, like at least with my patients, having a goal is the most important thing.
Yeah, that's fire.
It's what allows you to go through the drudgery of the everyday training, whether it's marathon training or IROX, or having that ability to hone in on one thing and find that motivation. I actually want to talk to you after the podcast about the concept of discipline and what you found in your studying to read this book. What is the thing that is different about people like Marcus, people that are in the NBA, people that are super motivated and disciplined, that sets them apart from like the guy that like just can't get the motivation to go to the gym?
Yeah, that's like that. I was talking about that. I'll tell you one thing. My daughter said a hilarious thing this week, which she was like, I didn't get generational wealth, but I did get generational hustle. Peace. Way to welcome,
Like that's something we got. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. No, I do think there's a Sebastian Younger book called War, and he talks about like basically you can take the same soldiers. I'm about to take way off track here. Do you want me to do that? Okay, really think they've studied the hell out of the military. There's a lot of funding for this kind of research, right? And these special forces groups move through dangerous territory, and there's one person whose job is to be on point. And that person will go, if they go further out in front, the rest of the group is much safer. And if they don't go as far, the rest of the group is much more vulnerable. And so this kind of like a measure of love. Like, how much do you love your fellow soldiers? If they love them, then they will go really far out. And then the group is super high performing. And if they don't love, they're at more risk in that category. Yeah, see, I'm taking more risk for me to make you guys safer. And basically, if you can make a group of, I think a special forces team is like 14 people or a lot better like that. And if they love each other, then that group is super high performing. You can handle any situation. And you could take the same soldiers, but then different groups, if they don't love each other, then they won't go out and point very far. Wow. And I feel like, that's discipline of a kind, right? But I think it's a little bit like, I think it's ultimately driven by this love thing, which is like, Marcus thinks what he's doing is really freaking important. Like, he really cares about like my hips and your hips, and he wants us to be okay and able to move. And that's his discipline. He's so in love with the topic. If he had the same guy on a different project, I don't think he would be very disciplined. I think he has this kind of, one point until him said he has like a higher holy calling. He found this thing that he just believes in all the way. It's super authentic. There's no part of him that's like, oh, I got to go to work today. No, he's like trying to save the world. And then I think that's why he's going really far out here, right? That's because he loves the guts. He found some sort of motivation. Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, that's how I say it.
There's a great part of the book you talk about Masugi. Am I pronouncing that?
He says Masugi. We're all saying, oh, Wong. I think a Japanese person, like, you guys said a lot. But they say Masugi. These white guys, California, say Masugi.
I was thinking about the concept of Masugi and how it's essentially you're getting into your super vulnerable pain cave, right?
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you felt like, this is what I thought in while I was reading, is that why marathon training and the stuff like high rocks is becoming so popular? Because people don't necessarily want to go out into the wilderness by themselves and risk their lives encountering black bears.
That could happen on you.
But doing a marathon is very difficult. You have to get into your pain cave. It is physiologically stressful, mentally stressful. Do you think that's why people do marathons and why it's becoming so popular?
But I feel like we're blessed with almost limitless bodies, right? Like we have, compared to most of nature, like we can do an extraordinary array of things and we can do them really well. And if you know that Harvard fatigue laboratory in the 40s, like had a hard time finding real physical limits to what we can do. It's mostly up here, mental, depending, it's dealing with extreme heat or extreme cold or dehydration or elevation. Like we can deal with so much. And so I think high rocks or marathon is a way to touch a little bit of like what's outside of normal. Like, yeah, this thing can actually do that. All kinds of people. I was a judge at high rocks a couple of days ago, and like I love the first of all, bodies are changing. Is there a judge on high rock? I was. Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, that was great. It's so fun. It's super inspiring. But like women's bodies are like there's an infinite supply of strong women now, which is like there were like 5,000 strong women that, and it's not. I don't mean strong. Oh, she looked no, she's like strong. Yeah. And it's awesome to see. Yeah. And they're just gritting through like all kinds of crazy stuff. And like as a parent, my daughter's there. It's like, oh, we got this crap. Like this sense of hang out of that infinite potential. Like it's such a cool shift in, this is the opposite of telling girls like, oh, let me carry the furniture for you or have her raise. Like, no, this isn't hot. Like she's going to carry the furniture for me. Yeah. Yep. But
Let your wife on you.
Yeah. It's absolutely awesome. But yeah, so I think part of it for me also is, I think that we spend a lot of time in our heads being super cerebral about, you know, like I told you my schedule for today when I got here. I'm like, oh, this that's kind of tiresome. And like a marathon to me is a bigger, like a 5K, I can actually picture every step in my head and what my pace should be and where I want to be. 5K is a little bit like manageable as like a simple daily task. Yeah. Whereas a marathon is like, I don't want to know where I am in the first half because it's like, I don't want to calculate the rest. Yeah. It's too much. Right? It's beyond what my brain really knows how to handle, which is upper, right? Where you're just like, we're just going to go. So you keep going. It's a difficult project. And once you get to mile 18, 19, 20, right now we'll start trying to meet out our pace or whatever, right? Like to me in the first part, just, don't. I hate it when like, oh, like 23 miles to go. Nah, man. See, what is to do that? Appreciate you. I just don't know you. I know you. Like, yeah, we're nowhere. So that feels like writing a book, or like a lot of hard things in my head where it's like, they asked me at the beginning of the book process, like, oh, can you turn in 90,000 words on October 12th? I'm like, maybe. Like, I'll say yes, because I'm the gritty guy, right? Like, but all he knows, I'm just going to give everything I got. And that's what we're saying in IROX. That's our first thing in the marathon. It's just like, find something you love enough to just jump all the way in, and then maybe it'll out. You think us?
Absolutely. Yeah. You talk about this concept also of how fear of movement really saps your ability to do anything, and really becomes like this kind of sick cycle where it feeds into itself. And I've treated a ton of patients where really, when it came down to it, they didn't have anything wrong. Yeah. They just really needed to believe that they can move again. Yeah. Like their pain was gone. The range of motion's great. But the thing that they needed was to get stronger. Yeah. But they were too afraid to get stronger because of that history of pain that they had. And you're talking about brainwashing, like a little bit of brainwashing. I had to like brainwash some of these people to believe in themselves again. And they're like, holy shit, like, did I really dead 150 pounds? Wow. Yeah. I could do this. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a concept that's really important.
I love that. So I talked to this pain expert, Rachel's office, and I think about stuff she said to me every day of my life, where, pain is a caught of the brain. And she has the story of the construction worker jumps off the ledge and sees the nail coming through his boot. Yeah. Freaks out so much he needs fentanyl and other drugs, and they cut his boot off and it hasn't missed his spot. Right? It's come between the toes. He's fine. But our brain is really smart, and it takes cues from seeing the nail come out of the top, and it's like, knows what's next. So that's how this works. And if you feel a lot of pain, it might be in the tissue, but her point is like every instance of pain is biopsychosocial. And like, I noticed my back was really bad. I noticed that I had a really good conversation with someone. It wasn't painful right then. That's weird.
Yeah.
Or it seemed like I might have, there's this nerve and this thing's pushing on it. And now twice people say, well, that's quite that simple, is it? And I can imagine you can provide this amazing service because you're going to do very detailed. So like your patients feel like you really do understand what's happening with the nerve. And then you could say, all right, you're good for a deadlift day.
Yeah.
Like it's permission to move. Like Marcus did that trick. It was that trick he did to me where I did my full assessment and my back is really bad. And then that was on Friday. We did not have the result. We had the preliminary results. We didn't have the full results. On Saturday, I think, let's go for this hike. And we're going to run barefoot and hop from rock to rock at this riverbed. And I was like, I guess he knows what he's doing. Like that wasn't the kind of movement I was used to at that time in my life. And the first time I was airborne, I was like, I'm going to land on my right leg, which would have been, I anticipated would potentially be very painful. And I was like, land, oh, that's okay. Like, I was like, by the time we got to the top of this thing, I was like, high as a coyote. So, I could move that was like, sucks. Religious experience. Oh my God. But you had to give me permission. I was a little too chicken. And I was like, I wasn't a pretty bold guy, but like that back defeated. I was like, it took me some nature therapy to get back up to the.
Yeah. And I shy away from getting imaging first because of that whole reason. Yeah. Is that people see, oh my God, I have the torn meniscus. I have to get surgery. Yeah. That's why my knee hurts. And I can't tell you how, I've been practicing PT for 15 years. I can't tell you how many times a patient has come in with an MRI that said they were torn meniscus and that they probably need surgery. And I treat them for everything but their meniscus. Yeah. And they're better. That's awesome. They don't need surgery. Yeah. Yeah.
Do they get the MRI from the surgeon? Is that why they always come with this conviction they need surgery?
Yeah. Yeah. They go see an ortho. Their knee hurts. It blew up. They go to the ortho. Not to say all orthopedic surgeons are bad. Sometimes surgery is necessary. It's a weird place to start. It's a bad place to start. Yeah. It's like using a rocket to light a cigarette.
I feel like there are the auto body people who only deal with crashes. And we were like, how do I drive better? Like, well, that guy doesn't know. He only deals with the worst drivers.
If you're holding a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Yeah. And then I have patients with back pain like yourself. Yeah. People that have like multiple herniated discs and this, that, the other thing. And they don't have any radicular pain. Yeah. They don't have any nerve pain, but their back hurts. And always feel stiff. I'm like, why is that? And really breaking people down into the fundamental parts and understanding how they interrelate to each other. Like a lot of times, no, you don't need surgery. Yeah. You just need to go jump around on some rocks.
They're like, just so I was having this conversation this morning, and this poor high schooler in Austin, Texas, who was like a good basketball player, has patellar tendons, like tendonitis. He was like torn, it's partially torn. He's just edema, and he hasn't been pain-free for years now. And everything's on the scan, and he's going to all the doctors with the scan. Meanwhile, so P3 did this retrospective study of NBA players. I think it's like 380 players over 2 years. Where they say everybody who ends with a catastrophic knee injury, they're like, what were the movement patterns that were about to dream of that, right? And none of the leading causes were in the knee. So like this scan is literally missing like all of the leading causes in the biomechanical movement data set, right? They're all from the hip or the ankle. Or like, there's a little line there about like Derrick Rose the morning he tore his ACL. I'm sure on my ACL will look perfect, right? It's the biomechanical issue that's assaulting you with like a number of newtons that no knee on the planet can tolerate. Those issues are going from here and here, right? So like it's just like having the person who looks at that MRI drive healthcare for musculoskeletal issues is, I understand why we got here. I get it. But now it's like, do you really think that everything that like you do is fake? Is that really what the insurance company believes? And like, I know it's tricky. It's not the case that like physical therapists can prevent injuries. It's the case that some can, right? And like, it's difficult to weed through who they are. Like, we should get on that project because I think it matters.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a question I have for you too. The average person, right? It's not flying to Santa Barbara. Yeah. Not going to Atlanta to go to P3. And what are those hallmarks of physical therapists or coaches or doctors even that people could look out for that might fall along the lines of what P3 is trying to do when they don't necessarily have the ability to go to P3?
Yeah. This comes up for me every day. Yeah. And I don't have great answers, but usually I think you'll find that wherever you are in your community, especially if you ask like athletes, right? There's someone, everybody has their person they go to who may or may not be good. Look for someone who gets good results, right? Look for someone whose clients tend to be feeling good. That'd be step one. I think step two is you want someone who's in favor of you moving, which is incredibly rare. Yeah. And this is like really weird to me, but so many practitioners want you to be scared. I don't think I walk out. I'm like I went to one physical therapist today, so it was like you can walk uphill. That's the only like exercise that you could do for foreseeable future. I was like, I can't. I don't think that's right. I'm the list. That's for me. I'm like a wire runner or a human being. Like I'm depressed just here using it. I think you don't. But I think if they're pro movement, if people tend to move, they're on something, right? That's like 5%, I think, at that point. Obviously, they had this really tricky. The body's super duper complicated. And I think that some people want to pretend it's simple. That's what it's like to me, right? It's not like there's not an ankle fix that's on panned out. It's just not how it is, right? So you want someone's going to go on a journey with you, do some real assessing and reassess over time and give you feedback and answer your questions at some length. And I don't know. It seemed pretty clear to me, honestly, like when I was in physical therapy, like at this table with this physical therapist, like I felt we're having a very interesting conversation that we're kind of getting to the bottom of some things. Like and over there, like she's just doing this. I don't know. I feel like you got to be curious about your body. Peter talks about giving you an owner's manual to your head, an improved owner's manual to your body. Like I think you got you want a little bit of the better understanding of what's really going on with you. Yeah. And it might not be right the first time around. That's fine. I feel like, oh, we thought it was this thing and it's that thing. Like, okay, but at least there's a problem solved, sorting it out. Yeah. Yeah. Actually, I'm sorry, I'm part of a liar, but no, doors. When advanced analytics came to the NBA, like most of the industry was like, oh, you mean this that we broken down into simple 100s for 50 years. Same post-ups, pick and roll, the same kind of lexicon. So like, you're telling me that it really is about stuff I've never thought about? Like how quickly you can switch from defending one guy at the front line to another guy at the front line and all these kind of new, different, weird things. And the important data set is not the coach's eye, but Second Spectrum that's placed in LA that has like server school data. I think a lot of cooks were saying, I just prefer that the problem not be that complicated because it makes me obsolete. And I feel like this is happening in every area of human endeavor now where these problems are complicated and wicked. And some people have brains that embrace the complication, and some people are fighting that. I think if you don't want a practitioner who has a wider handouts and they're pretending that your body is a simple thing, like, yeah, it's the complicated. It's 600 muscles, like, that work in super interdependent ways, super complicated.
And infinite vectors of force.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there are vectors involved.
Must your the word. Yeah, I think one of the main concepts that I take from the book is that humans are amazing, right?
Yeah.
We're the result of millions of years of evolution, hundreds of thousands of iterations of human genetics. And we have developed this real ability to be like almost limitless.
Yeah.
And in our society and in our culture, our healthcare environment, we've really put huge limiters on ourselves. And this book at least helps illustrate how we could rip some of those limiters off, our governors off.
Yeah.
Off of the system.
Yeah.
And I think that's a super important message. One of our passions is to have people moving again and moving in the ways they want to move.
Yeah.
And I think that books like this are going to go a long way in helping people believe in themselves again.
Yeah. Yeah. This is being free, like truly free. I spent a day with Marcus and his kids recently. And so we like rode bicycles to a volleyball tournament, and his daughter's playing beautiful volleyball on the beach, all those varied movements. And then and then in the middle of the volleyball tournament, actually on the way there, Marcus says, like, make sure that you take your time with your serve, because you don't rush it, and then you put it in the net. And like at one point in the middle of a pretty exciting moment that she totally rushed it, put it in the net, and he like goes, Mila. She stares him down, she's like really glares at, and so they're kind of like mock mad at each other. And then as soon as the game is over, they full on wrestle. Like full on, like father, there's a bunch of parents' films, like these two are wrestling. Like, he's pinning her to the ground and she's there. And then 15 minutes after that, I said I wanted to go in the ocean. It's cold there, but I really wanted to jump in. And someone said, all right, I'll do it. And then his daughter was like, a no, but eventually she was a yes. And she jumped in with us. So just in these 2 hours, all of these different ways of moving that were so not sitting.
Yeah.
And so there's all kinds of weird movements with this. And I think if we have a regular childhood, this just happens. I don't think you have to teach kids to do any of that.
Yeah.
We just turn them loose. They're just going to deal with that. But if we don't turn them loose, right? There's so little tree climb and so little. I don't know, like some whack job was like we need to have our kids race in like tribes in the woods or whatever. But they do. My kids both in a certain age, they just started like shoving me. They were just like, all right, you want to wrestle? I'm like, guys, I think there's some. Just this morning, my wife and I were looking at. There's a little like juvenile bunny living in our bedroom. Seems to be unparented. And he was just like rehearsing awesome moves. He's like, peeling out and like throwing like mulch up and or zipping into the wood. And just like he's doing like, his natural state is in, I will seed some grass now and I will spray. Like he's still like
Testing the fungus.
we all don't want to do that. We all want to just peel out and throw some mulch. And I don't see it happening enough. I feel like kids don't feel robust enough that you get to adulthood and you have it's about movement vocabulary, right? Your poor movement vocabulary.
Yeah.
And so then you're like, can you walk across this log and, make this part of the hike really fun? Or are you going to go halfway through the hike and then just stop because you're scared? Yeah. I'm like, if you want to complete the hike, I think it's like healthier. Yeah, there's a risk of falling, but I think maybe that's tolerable given that staying home and doing that thing is like, at least the fourth cause of global death, right? Like it's dangerous not to go.
Absolutely. I forgot who said it, but we said never stop a child from doing something dangerous carefully.
I've never heard that, but that sounds like,
I have to repeat that to myself a lot when my kids are out in the woods or like on playground playing and they're like, doing something precarious. I'm like, don't stop. Be there, but don't stop.
I always call it like, my kids are big now, but I'm like, you earn it. If you keep not getting hurt doing things that make me a little nervous, like I feel like I'm going to keep trusting you to do more like, and like my son he's just got super interested in doing like all this, like, I'm going to climb this rock wall and then dangle off that bridge and then drop down. And they're like, but he would never get hurt. He got hurt when he was 18 months old or so. We bit through his tongue, falling off a chair. From that point on, like to this day, not wood, like he's done so many crazy things. Like all the crazy things. Yeah. He's good at it. Like he's good. He'll come around my bike, press the spot up. I'm like, oh, okay. Like 100% success rate for a while. So even now getting injured, like, oh, it was an anomaly. You know what you're doing. He feels comfortable calling those moments, such as like,
He has a big movement vocabulary.
it feels like it.
Yeah, I think that's a concept that I use with my patients, is that a lot of my patients come in with a very poor movement vocabulary.
Yeah.
And in order to have a good vocabulary, you need to know the ABCs.
Yes.
And some of those ABCs, and at least in my opinion, are: can you squat? Can you hinge? Can you do a split squat or like a lunging type activity in different vectors that are lateral, backwards? Can you do a hinge in the same vectors, forward, lateral, backwards? And then can you do you have competency with rotational movements?
Yeah.
So a lot of what I do in terms of the program is, when we're starting from the ground up, people that don't have great movement competency, we have to go back to the ABCs.
For sure.
Yeah. Teach them how to hinge, teach them how to lunge, teach them how to squat, teach them how to RDL essentially, and twist and rotate.
Yeah.
And it's really surprising. Like, so many of my patients that have low back issues or issues with generalized weakness, like they have no idea how to hinge.
Yeah.
No one has ever taught them how to hinge.
Hinge gives them moderate braces. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Because it's a prerequisite for so much movement. Like if I were to say, hey, Henry, on 2 legs, go jump as far as you possibly can.
Yeah.
That initiating movement is a hinge.
Yeah.
You are essentially in an RDL position.
Yeah.
If I were to say, Henry, hey, I want you to leap from here to there on 1 leg, you would essentially be in a RDL. So it is a prerequisite to be able to do these other ballistic activities, right? So just giving them that movement competency, giving them to helping them learn their ABCs, and then it translates to being able to do these other things.
I think that's what I got from the kinesiologist in his classes, was like, she was like, now we're going to like walk you back to the basics of how to move.
Yeah.
But then next thing you know, you're like, oh, walking through the airport with my bag is now like a sitch.
Yeah.
Whereas it used to be kind of like, yeah, I can manage it. No, like, which means you're now the permission to just I would just find myself doing more.
Yeah.
Someone's like, oh, do you want to, I don't know where it'll be. I would help you with your back order, etc. I just know then you build your own movement vocabulary just from feeling permission, because your body feels solid doing that sort of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's cool.
I don't have any more questions, but is there something that you want to talk about that we didn't necessarily cover during?
No, I just think it's really cool that you're like, it feels to me like you're unusually open-minded to like input in your workspace, right? I'd like usually people kind of threat by that, right? But yeah, but I feel like you're just super thirsty for that, which is that's cool. I love that. It feels like it's probably really good for your practice and your patients and your like next, like, I don't know, whatever kind of things are going to come in the next like decades of your career. Like, you keep adding the best things out there to the next, like, such a different path, even if it's a different place, than if you're just like, well, this is what they tell me in school. That's what I'm going to do. Oh, I want to say, Joe, one other question for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
One thing that Mark test about, the academic journals prefer univariate analysis. And I think almost all the problems we have left to really get exciting results on are multivariate. For instance, the one that he gives all the time is you're overweight, but you have good landing form, which is a shorthand. Then the extra weight is almost no influence whatsoever on your injuries. But if you have a bad landing form, then the extra weight is like exponentially increased injury risk. Yeah. But that's the thing that's hard to get in a journal, because it doesn't have a tidy little table with like one, we're not just testing hip hinge angle or whatever. Do you find that? Has that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then that's what we were talking about a little bit before, is that it's the field of physical therapy has too many variables. In my treatment session, say you came in with low back pain, we would first do a quick assessment, have a conversation. What was your day like? What happened yesterday? Say you're in more pain today than you were like the past week. Oh yeah, I was cleaning out the garage. I maybe was a little dehydrated, and we'll kind of peel back the layer, like what happened caused your symptoms to that. And then we might do some range of motion testing, see like where your hip range of motion is. And then I would do some soft tissue stuff to your back, maybe some mobilizations to your hip. Maybe we would do some distraction, and then we would do some dry needling to your low back, stimulated with electricity. We would do some shock waves to get the muscles to calm down. And then we would start moving, right? We'd get you into a better position, do some core engagement, do some glute engagement, and really try to start to stabilize the system again. How do you study that? There's like 1,500 variables in a build session. So, and not only that one session, that session's probably way different from session 16,
Right.
than session 4. So how do you study that? There's no way. And that's also frustrating. Like, well, especially influencers and people online that show that physical therapy interventions don't work.
Yeah. What are you talking about?
Well, of course, if you take just dry needling and say, oh, this study shows that dry needling doesn't work. Yeah, because if you just do dry needling in and of itself and take it as a unique variable, but obviously it's not going to work. It has to be part of a whole comprehensive system in that one session, but also part of a bigger plan.
Yeah.
And that is always going to be individualized to the specific person. The way I treat your back is very different than I'm going to treat John's back or Judy's back. So for you, for the researcher, physical therapy research is notoriously poor, and physical therapy research is notoriously sparse because there's no money, and it's a very difficult field of study.
And so the ones that you can learn from are those where you can see the mechanism, right? So they were talking about myofascial release research is iffy, but they were like, but we're going to put these very iffy kettlebells on this poor guy, Tashik's quads. For her quite some time, I'm not taking straight over to the rig.
Yeah.
So we they does rubbers on his quads and they're going to stretch fully help. Then he's going to do some matrix movement patterning he's going to use his quads with their new range of motion immediately. Because you did multiple rounds of that. And they're like, we can see, we respect their research about myofascial release generally. In this setting, where we follow with the stretching and then we make the movement patterning, we can see him move differently over time, right? It's the visual one, right? So you can actually do a little science on your hopes. Some of them work, right? Some of them you can't really see and you can't really know. You just should ask him, does it feel better? And then there were so many reasons to be behind the feeling that hurt, Okay. But yeah, I feel like, we're pretty visual creatures, so I guess we're going to learn the visual ones earlier. But yeah, to me, the basal solutions are come from all these secret little nervous system things that are happening various cells away.
And there's a lot of practitioners out there that harp on evidence-based practice.
Yeah.
And there's pillars, what we call pillars of evidence-based practice. One is the evidence, one is the actual white papers and the research. But another pillar is actually clinician experience, right? So if you as a clinician are treating Henry Abbott for low back pain, and you are doing certain interventions that clearly make a difference, right? That is evidence. And that is evidence-based practice. Even though research might say that myofascial release isn't helpful, right? If I'm doing it with Henry Abbott and it's effective, then I'm justified in that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think if there's one thing I think that really matters here, I think there are probably always going to be fights about any recommendation or any finding. But I think that the key thing is that the key data set, physical therapy has been dogged by research that was in not the proper data set. Granular movement data is the data set.
Yeah.
That matters. This is where the answers are to these questions. And we didn't know that before. I don't think one should feel bad about it. But now we know that, that's the place to look. The MRI is nothing compared to right? Just all these little cues of the regular let's part of B3 is stuff about just hip mobility or instrumentation, externalization. There's issues of ground context and landing. All of the injuries are coming from these things. They're discovering this thing that I have where, I have on the call the blender. I don't properly engage my hips on landing. No one knew that existed. I guess people did, but not in an organized way. It leaps out of that was their first finding when they installed the motion capture. This is where he's going to come from, right? Yes. This kind of there's that little animated skeleton and the motion capture system lands in a certain way. And sometimes it's super able to withstand massive forces, and other little tweaks of movement they get 100% guided injury. I feel like this is what we want to understand is the difference between those two things.
Absolutely. And yeah, it's just highlighting stuff that we've had some cursory understanding, but now we have some evidence back up.
Yeah, no, cool. Thanks for being curious about it.
No, thank you so much for coming in. I know you get pretty far away. I'm glad you're able to make time. I'm sure you're very busy with the book and promoting it, but I enjoyed it greatly. I think it's actually going to help inform some of my practice and change the way I look at some of my athletes. Even just this past Saturday, I was doing slow motion capture of this football player who plays at Fordham, who had a injury to his foot. And I was looking at his landing mechanics to see how much translation there was. I was able to slow it down enough with the slow motion on my phone to be able to see how and cue him like heels down. Let's not land on the toes.
Yeah.
And the first few reps, he was on his toes, and then we were able to cue him to get on his heels, and then we saw less translation of him go. I was like, wow, that really interesting.
This is Marcus's dream. He was like, let's make it a movement. But yeah, this whole thing. Yeah, that's super cool.
I would be honored to talk to Marcus at one point too.
Yeah, okay, I'm sure he'll talk to you. Yeah, cool.
Absolutely. That's all we have for today, but thank you so much, Henry, for coming in. And Henry's book is already out. You can buy it on Amazon or anywhere.
Audiobook was in.
Audiobook. I was waiting for that too.
Forget the date, but yeah, it's very soon. It'll be very soon.
Audiobook coming out is Ballistic, the New Science of Injury-Free Athletic Performance. Henry Abbott, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Super fun talk.
Thanks so much for tuning into today's episode. It really does mean a lot to us. And don't forget to share, subscribe, or comment if you got at least one or two helpful insights or takeaways to help you get to your next level.